Today, our topic is to go through data management in Dynamics 365. This is one of the most important area to make the project successful. Myself and my colleague Rahul will be taking you through this, and just a little bit about myself. I'm one of the principals at Real Dynamics, and I'm also lead for F&O practice at Real Dynamics. I am one of those very few people who were recognized as fast-track recognized architect by Microsoft R&D Group in 2019 and 2020. We have published few books on Microsoft Dynamics along with Rahul as co-author and a few other team members, and really happy to be connected with the community through our Power Community platform. Thank you again. And this is my contact information, just in case. You can reach me on social media or email and our website. With that, I'll hand it over to Rahul. Thanks,
Rahul, you're on mute.
Yep.
Oh, hi, greetings everybody. Sorry, took some time to get myself unmuted. So I'm Rahul, one of the partners in Real Dynamics, also Microsoft certified trainer, and along with Yogesh and our team who are experts in finance and operations and other Dynamics products now, we are keen to share our knowledge in this session.
Thanks, Rahul. Okay, so agenda for today's session. So we'll be going through a few tips and tricks for high volume data conversion scenarios. So usually on projects where we have to deal with multi companies and then also very high volumes, and there is also very aggressive schedule to cut over, meaning there is less time required, or there is always a need to improve the time taken to do data conversion because of the business continuity and reasons for also making sure we can bring the system up sooner and give more time for validation. So we'll be going through some of the tips in Dynamics application, how we can achieve those. We'll also look at some of the options for incremental data conversion strategy. This is something we need to start planning from day one, not something like a couple of weeks before the going live. We'll talk about few ways we can be utilizing batch framework to the divide and conquer approach, and have demo of these, and of course we'll have some Q&A time as well. Feel free to add your questions in the chat, and I will try to answer them along the session or towards end in Q&A. With that, let's take a look at some of the high volume tips. So very first one, which starts with the planning right from even in the planning stage for the sandbox environments. Data conversion, you end up doing it multiple times during the course of the project, just to make sure you're able to get it tuned and make the progress on either extract or fix the issues on the import. And all of that is very important to be done in a dedicated environment, because you might have to do it over and over again without having to interrupt the rest of the team who is working on the testing or some other cycles. We need to have sandbox environment that is right size for doing this, meaning you can go for tier 1 environment, but you won't get the exact counts, or it may not even be able to convert the data you need to do, considering the volume you might have. So we need to look at procuring the sandbox, and the reason it needs to be done early on from planning standpoint is there is dollar impact. We need to make sure we have considered in the budget early on if we were to have, say, tier 4, tier 5 environment, if you need to have one. The next one on the list is change tracking. This is very obvious, but something that we have to consider because data conversion team and reporting team are kind of working in the same environment. They may have things that are there for reporting side to push the data into BYOD, and change tracking is enabled. We need to make sure those things are disabled while you're converting the data, because these things are good for incremental push into BYOD, but they come at expense on every insert. So we need to make sure we are not adding that expense while doing the data conversion. Bulk import using set-based entities. This is very similar to having bulk import in SQL, which runs a lot faster, and there are ways to do it on specific entities in Dynamics. So we'll be looking at it in the demo. Composite entities, we need to avoid those for complex data sources or data import process. They're great when it's time to extract the data, but not really from performance standpoint for importing the data. In some of the projects we have come across, our volume was very high, and there was just not enough time to get that data converted during that short window. We were able to pre-validate the data outside the system, and we were able to turn off the X++ validations. That was definitely done very carefully, because we ran all those validations upfront when we got the extract. So it reduced amount of time we had to spend going through X++ business logic in data conversion process. We were able to use data, some of the tools in Dynamics during the testing process, and even in the after going live, just like consistency check, running consistency checks to make sure referential integrity and things are taken care. And we were able to identify those validations upfront during for testing purposes, and improved amount of time it was taken to import the data. Again, this is something which is required for things that are on critical path. We'll talk about those in next slide. Using bundling and batch architecture, this allows us to bundle the imports into smaller tasks and create multiple tasks that can run in parallel and really utilize the power of our batch servers. We should try to run the imports in 2 stages. One, to get into staging, get the data into staging, and then run it from staging to target. That allows us to improve the time taken overall. There is some background noise, I guess. You can mute your line. Awesome. Okay, thank you. Utilizing data templates and data packages for configuration. So this is really key when you have multiple legal entities involved, and also very useful when you have multiple phases going live. So for example, you have first phase going live, and at that time you're going to procure your production environment, and you may have opportunity to convert the data and or move the configurations to production using SQL, like just push the backup of database into production. But for next phases, you really need to have data packages and templates for configurations, because you won't be able to override the production database. Hopefully you won't have to ever do that. That means you're starting from scratch again. So for those approaches, we need to have data packages and data templates for configuration data. Update statistics across tables for using the LCS tool. So usually once you convert certain data points, it's good to run the update statistics for those areas. For example, once you run the customers import or product import, it's good to run the update statistics and have it on your plan to do it before you start importing, say, sales orders or on-hand inventory data. It will be a lot faster if you have update statistics run before importing those. Lighter file types. This is something very helpful when you're importing the data, say large volume of data. So if you have CSV files, those are going to go a lot faster than Excel. It is very significant difference when you're looking at high volume records. And number sequences, this is something which does take time, and you can try to pre-number, say for example, customers, you can pre-assign the numbers, or vendors, you pre-assign the numbers, and it will reduce time taken to assign the number during the data conversion. It also, of course, you definitely don't want to have any number sequence that has a continuous number sequence, because it has a lot more overhead than a regular number sequence. And then last one, but it's really important one, to how you approach the data conversion. So from scoping perspective, you need to try and reduce the historical data that gets converted. So for example, if you are converting, if you have requirements that say you need sales history for some certain number of years or months, so that you are able to process the returns. There are different ways to do that. You don't really need to migrate the data into Dynamics 365 Live environment. You can use the Azure Data Lake, our tools from BI standpoint, or an example of like having sales history for running the returns. We have been able to utilize tools like Power Apps to allow users to use Power App to connect to Azure SQL and insert the returns when they have to create the return orders. So there are ways you can smartly avoid migrating the data, historical data, because this is really important from a scoping aspect and data conversion aspect. With that, we'll talk about some of the tips on the incremental side. Incremental data conversion is really important from planning perspective. If you have need for doing the data conversion in incremental fashion, you need to start planning early. It's not like something we can decide a couple of weeks before going live. This has impact on how you extract the data from the source system, because our source system should be able to extract the data in incremental fashion. For example, products can be converted 2 weeks before going live, but you should be able to extract all the products that have changed or have been created new in those last 2 weeks window, so that you can convert those in incremental fashion. Also, from import standpoint, you need to be able to handle those and have that exercise during your target cut, or like pre-migration and multiple runs you are going to have. It will give you better times, how much time it's going to take on critical path for running the incremental. Again, pre-validation and transformation, doing it upfront, is going to help you from data conversion in this incremental fashion as well. Defining the dependency chart and also clearly identifying your critical path is very important for identifying the incremental strategy, because you really have to go after things that are falling on the critical path and taking longer time on critical path for incremental strategy. For example, if you have a high volume of products, and products are the one which are taking highest amount of time, or say products have pricing is the one which takes time, but it has dependency on pricing, products to be there. So those are the candidates then you need to look at from removing from critical path and putting them on the incremental strategy. That way you can convert the products, the pricing upfront, and just bring the delta during the cutover window, which will help reduce your critical path time. Primary keys, this is also something unique that is different on the entities. It's something we need to be aware of how they are shown, and we'll cover those in our demo. As part of this, again, incremental path, you can have updates and inserts. So we have to be careful on the validations for these duplicates before loading. So we need to make sure these upserts are handled, inserts and updates are handled appropriately. We should have smaller projects for atomic data projects that are going to be for specific use, and they're going to help in the incremental strategy as well. Okay. Similar to aligning the data entities, we need to also make sure our execution log, staging records has been kept track of from your update tracker perspective, because those have to be dealt with. Say, for example, converts, say customers which you couldn't convert because of certain reasons, and they are going to have dependency on the rest of the, say, sales order or OpenAR migration. You need to make sure you are dealing with those errors, running the incremental for them before you can deal with the other dependencies. And that's really about the error records and dealing the error records in that incremental fashion as well, so that you can make sure those are taken care so that you don't have any issues with the downstream impacts. With this, we have next slide on the for divide and conquer. I'll hand it over to Rahul here, and we'll be doing the demo as well once we're done with this slide. This is the last slide before we get into the demo. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Yogesh. I think all data migration seems to be like a iceberg for the outside team or the outside world. So be careful in terms of the underlying challenges. Yogesh rightly pointed out several tips, especially critical path is very important. Managing the incremental strategy that helps to be on time and sometimes before also. Now, in a lot of the data migration projects, you will probably see heavier or high volume data sets. Now, what is important is it could be very simple in information that needs to be migrated or imported, but selecting the right set of entities is super important. While Microsoft has given a lot of entities out of box, some are meant for ease of access, some are meant for quickly getting information across multiple tables underlying, while some are meant for performance. So knowing if you have a large volume, understanding the breakdown is very important. That's what is the divide and conquer here. So one of the key things that we want to call out is a data migration team, whether it's a single person or a combination, multiple team members, should have within the team technical skills. Having coding skills is great. If not, not a worry. But having a technical bent of mind is definitely needed along with the business and functional side. This helps in troubleshooting. This helps in kind of being on top of issues when you're dealing with volumes of data. And when we are saying it could be few 100,000 to few million records that we might have to migrate, this is becoming very much like a need there. Now, the other aspect is using the right set of entities. It is said, right, the simpler it is, the better it is. So we always will suggest try and use entities which you can use it from a volume perspective. So if you're loading simple master data like customers, there are a lot of entities that can be used for loading customers. One of the entities and this keeps on updating in every probably platform update or every other platform update. So there is customers V3, which is sufficient enough to get all of the customers loaded. You'll have the customer, right, all the details around the customer, its name, addresses, contacts, and it's easier to use that, right? One single, it's meant to make life easier. But on the other side, to balance it, it's not so ideal in doing for volume. So as Yogesh was saying, we can use batch, we can use bundling for a lot of entities. Some of the entities are not allowed, and these are probably to do with their complex structure underlying. So if a particular entity has a lot of data sources underlying, one, it's definitely going to take time because it's going to take information in all of those underlying tables. And two, it may or may not allow multi-threading. So if it doesn't allow multi-threading, it will essentially be very tough. Even if you have to load a few 100,000 customers, imagine it could take more than 12 hours or a day to do that. And then, the troubleshooting part again. So the whole package becomes very lengthy. So instead, what we suggest and what we utilize for high volumes are the breakdown entities of the larger one. So instead of using customers V3, you can break it down and use two things, which are customer definitions and then the customer detail. So what it does is you're taking out the complexity. Customer definition will just get the customer created, right? Though it is like creating the party record and all those things, but that will still be lighter. It can be done in multi-threading. This is the key here. So imagine if you have to load 100,000 customers, now instead of 12 hours, you're almost reducing by 5x time. The same additional information about the customers, then once the customer record is there, all you need is the customer ID or the party number, and then we can go ahead and use the customer detail entity, which is going to help us get all other information about the customers, or right from all its terms and contacts and addresses, and that will is also supported for multi-threading. So similar to like customers, there are like products. If you notice, release product is great if the volume of information is lower, but if it is high, then this entity is definitely going to take time. It has 40 odd data sources underlying. So instead, you can use 3 other entities which are using the products separately, using the release product separately, and using the default order settings. So what is going to happen is it will need some amount of balancing and sequencing to be done because you can do it all in the one atomic data project, as Yogesh was mentioning earlier. However, it will not be one run, it will be multiple. Now, this also helps in kind of ensuring that your core data is up there. So in this case, products will always be available. You can sequence it at number 1, and you can multi-thread it also. So with that, what we'll do is we'll look into one of the entity. We'll see some of the tips that we kind of covered, our best practices indirectly in demo. I'll try and share one more time. I think I'll have to share my whole desktop here. All right, so we'll go to our, for a data migration person, it's data management is the key place to be going. So we'll start with looking at data management. Now you might be wondering, where do you define whether we can have an entity for multi-threading or not? So that's the first thing you'll typically look into the framework parameters. If it's a fresh environment, we always recommend you do a refresh. If it's any new deployments that has happened, you should also refresh. That takes care of all the enhancements and also the config key updates. For modifications to existing entities, you will certainly need to, certain times, you may have to rebuild the target mapping also, which will show it as well. So here there is a place which is called as configure entity execution parameters. So this is helpful for defining which entities and their import or record threshold and how many threads we should use. Now, Yogesh mentioned that we have to rightly size our data migration environment, right? So that it can give expected results when we do it on the production side. This will essentially help us knowing what's typically a size of the environment and how many tasks that we can utilize. Now, this list typically in a live production environment or an actual customer will be much larger. This being a demo, we're just using few entities here to drive home the example. So if you take, this is the list, you can keep on adding here. This gives the list of all the entities. And certainly if you try to add heavier entities like customers V3, it will simply not allow. Now, once we do it, we can essentially provide the record threshold. And after that threshold is hit, or if you have volume more than that threshold, the system is start going to utilize the import task count and divide that workload. Now, to use this, it's important that you essentially run all the import in the batch job. So if you run it asynchronously or you run it interactively, then also this is not utilized. So it's important that for volume, you use batch and you use batch bundling, which is essentially the record threshold and the task count. So this is good. Now there are certain entities which could be very simple in nature, and some can be very, very voluminous. And for those cases, we'll suggest where possible use the set base. Now you won't find a lot of entities out of box which are turned on for set base. At certain times, it does need a simpler underlying structure. But think of very simple examples. Let's say you're getting forecast entries or historical forecast in, right? Historical forecast is something that's used for your machine learning and demand and statistical forecasting. So certain of those entities you can turn on, and when you're getting historical sales from the legacy system, which could run into millions of records, it will allow you to get it much faster. And this will then not need to be using the batch bundling because it's completely atomic. So either the entire million records will come or it will not come. That's where the highlight of doing all of the validation, pre-validation before loading is super important. And those essentially help you to drive discussions with the business. A lot of times there are key decisions that are needed on the data front. Sometimes you need it to be done at the planning stage, sometimes during the execution as to some data, what needs to be done based on the pattern you find. This is the modified target mapping I was saying earlier. So when any entity modifications has been done, it's recommended to essentially go to target mapping and regenerate, right? Because if your development team might have done enhancements and they've added few additional fields that needs to be used, it can be essentially quickly used to regenerate the new fields over here. And then there are a few other things that we called out, which has to be used with precaution. That's essentially within the entity structure, you get the ability to turn off validations and turn off or on the business logic. So this is by default turn on for almost all the entities. And turning it off means you take an additional responsibility in terms of running consistency check and doing some sample validation testing also. But this gives the jump in the processing time or saving in the processing time. It will be jump in doing it faster as it's going to skip some of those. So you can do some of those pre-validations outside. Some does still need to happen in Dynamics. And if you need to do that at the field level, you can certainly do it by going to the target fields and doing it. What we'll do is we'll now look at one of the import file. though we suggest to use CSV, but if it's a smaller file like this, I'll just show an example. So this is a demand forecast entries table, simple enough. It could run into a few hundreds. And for, it's just importing demand forecast for the future dates for certain items or using the demo data. What we have done is for the purpose of troubleshooting, purposefully for one of the warehouses, took the warehouse with the wrong number, right? So we'll see how that incremental processing also works. This is going to be helpful for ensuring that when data sets have issues, you don't really load everything again and do it. How do you manage it incrementally within Dynamics? So here we'll create an import project. We'll just call it no special characters in the first thing, that's still there. And I'm going to use the entity called demand forecast entry. This is one of the entities we already have in our entity execution parameters to run multi-thread, and we'll provide the path and we'll essentially go ahead and import it. Now, one of the things which is important is certain times you may have the Excel file carrying the main data, but you can also add additional tabs for references, for decisions. And while you're loading it, during the load time, you can select the worksheet. The other few tips we mentioned as part of the best practices, do look upon the staging. If you notice any issues like this, it's good time to refresh your entities. The other thing is on the right hand side where you see the staging, be watchful of the primary field. So in this case, any field which has an asterisk towards it, which is the case here, this has the asterisk for the forecast model ID and the forecast start date. It doesn't have an asterisk for the forecast entry number, but in this case, we know if the entry number is duplicated, it's going to fail. It's going to fail the entire import, not just those records. So it will not even get it to staging. So while this is good to look into it, but you have to be watchful a little bit with your FN or knowledge, what essentially could be the primary fields over there. All right, so different options for import. If you directly click at the import, which is top left here, it's going to take it asynchronously, which is most of the time used when there are manageable data sets. If it is very small and very few that you are experimenting, you can certainly do import now, making it run synchronously. And import in batch, this is the one which will essentially utilize the batch and the bundling part that we were showing earlier. Now, how do we do it in two parts, right? So when we are saying that, and this is very important for the high volume. So if it is high volume, first ensure the data, the file, the structure, everything is good enough for it to come to staging. So we suggest you use the re-import option. This is where you can essentially suggest to do it in two steps. By default, it will be turned on the execute target step, which is the second part of the import process, and you can turn it off. Then turning it off, essentially you can run the import, and once the import pass is done, then we can essentially put it in batch for taking it to the, okay. Now in case issue comes, how do you go and troubleshoot? So the first thing is we are going to look here, okay, what it is failing. It's probably failing on a duplicate key because we are trying to import. So what we'll do is we will go back. This is at the entire import level. This is very important. This saves ton of time for all of your import to happen. So the primary number, because it's getting repeated, what we'll do is we'll make it auto number here, the forecast entry number, and that will essentially generate the auto numbers for us. So instead of using from the file, we'll now use it from the data project and auto generate it. Again, we'll take it out, run the import again. Now, at times there could be issues with the whole file structure itself. At times it could be with the individual records within that file. So the first instance, it was the error in the entire file taken care of, and that showed that the primary field asterisk may not always be accurate. Taking care of it, you will then be able to see that data. So all of this is now taken to staging. So now we can go to the staging data. and be able to take it to the target. So you'll notice that the status here is not started. You can always say copy data to target. Since this is the first iteration, we'll say run for all the records. And again, we get the 3 different choices which are there, running it synchronously, asynchronously, and in batch. Since it's low volume, just 82, it's just going to take one task. But if it is crossing the threshold given in our execution parameters, then it's certainly going to use more number of tasks. I'll run it asynchronously. It's such a low volume for norm. Come back. And what we expect is, probably everything should go in, but one warehouse record which was purposefully kept with a wrong value, it should typically be holded back. So when this execution gets over, we'll see upon the log again. We'll try and troubleshoot how we essentially can get a pattern of issues that are there in the data. All right, so it says, okay, we have taken 81 that has been created. There is one definitely still in pending. So let's see the pending. Now imagine if this is not 82, if it's 820,000 records, the challenge becomes much bigger. So in this case, then you will probably need to know what are the records that didn't make through, because at some point that those needs to be reviewed upon and reprocessed again. So let's use the error filter here, and with that error filter, whether one or multiple records, all will get shown. Now, if you export this list, right, you will not know where exactly that issue is. So exporting the list from the Office icon is only going to export the grid. You will not get here the results. So what we suggest is you can probably personalize it and essentially get your message also at the grid level. So what this will do is it will get all of your messages. So all of the error records will have all of the error messages. Then you export it to Excel, and then you can essentially find the pattern from the error. Once essentially your error root cause is known, and let's say you know the solution for fixing it. In this case, let's say we'll import this record for the warehouse, we'll fix it. And then we'll incrementally run only for those error records, whether you select it. So either within the error set, you can handpick and select few records, or usually you do that for the first record for every pattern identified. And if it has been resolved, then you can run it for all. So again, we'll say copy data. This time not running for all, we'll run it on a criteria. 2 choices, run for all the errors, or you can run by the rows selected. Let's say we'll run for all the errors here. And being a single record, I'll just run it interactively. If it is done, it is completed here, we'll check back the status, and our import part is done. So this way, managing the incremental updates, managing data issues, troubleshooting them, finding the pattern, and helping them getting it resolved. Looking upon the batch bundling, using the execution parameters, multiple threads, we strongly recommend using it, and the lighter entities for high volume information also. So with that, I think we cover our demo. We can essentially open the forum for Q&A here.
Hello. Well, thank you again, Yogesh and Raul. There are a couple of questions. The first one's by Christoph, who's asked, can you provide examples of what might be considered to be high volume data migration scenarios, please?
Yeah.
Sure. Yep. High volume data migration scenarios, meaning you have a lot of record counts that you want to you have to migrate. So for example, we have worked with customers who needed almost 400,000-500,000 products to be converted, and so on. It really depends on specific area, how many specific records you have to convert. So if you have across the board similar sizes, few thousand products, few thousand customers, and so on, you may be okay. But if the minute you start getting into more than hundreds of thousands records, then you need to really look at. And in general, yeah, for any, even with the smaller volume, it's always good to optimize the entities that are taking longest time and reduce your data conversion time. That will help you by giving you more time back for doing the validations, or also you can be doing multiple rounds. So if your data conversion takes less time, you have ability to run those multiple times to keep validating your fixes and also verify the conversions multiple times.
And Yogesh, when you mentioned that, you reminded me of an example when we did this event in South Africa 2 years ago. And we were speaking to a customer. You might have heard of them. They're called De Beers. They're a diamond mining company. And as you can imagine, the number of products a diamond company has. Every single type of gemstone, different variations of sizes.
Right.
That is the extreme end, right? That's a very edge case, but that's the opposite extreme. So Christoph, that's to put it into context of when we talk about high volume. And I think when Yogesh mentioned about the number of products and then the volume of integrations that's required, I think that puts things into context. So thank you, Yogesh. Next question.
To add to it, the project currently I am working on, the products count has been 2.5 million products we have to import during go live, and imagine how much on hand inventory. So that is kind of a high volume transaction. So 5 to 6 million records for on hand inventory. So that is called as high volume transaction scenario.
Thank you, Sukrit. Thanks for that. Next question is Marwa. Who's asking, what is the best way to upload bulk historical data from local apps to Dynamics FO to use in its analysis and sales forecast?
I can take that. So I think if the answer is for looking for options in sale forecast, there is an entity that's given that's for loading the historical demand forecast. It needs a particular pattern. You can essentially get your sales information. You have to get like a net of your sales and returns in that structure. And with all the options we mentioned about multi-threading and high volume scenarios, that should be used to upload your sales. And then it is automatically then taken care by your machine learning for coming up with the statistical forecast. We recently did that for a couple of customers, and this was the same approach taken. Again, we had high volume products, high volume historical sales, all taken through this multiple batch bundling process we mentioned.
Thank you for that, Rahul. And Atul is saying he agrees with you. He's going back to one of the slides where you were discussing. He said he agrees. Actually, 800,000 customer load on a tier 2 environment, which is around 75,000 records in one file. It runs for 12 hours for each file, and 800,000 customers takes approximately 10 days.
We share the pain. We went through that path first time, and then we autopiloted and auto-corrected. We were like, this is no way going to happen in the cutover time. That's Fantastic. Why the simpler entities, simple is the way to go.
Thank you, guys. Sukrit, do you have any final comments?
No, I think this is a great event and great session. Thank you, Yogesh, Rahul, and in fact, overall all sessions are really great. And thanks for all attendees and all the organizers for staying late and organizing this great event.
Thank you. And another thing to mention, guys, that people don't realize, but Rahul, his book is something that we're giving away as a prize. So we'll be giving away the prize, which is thanks to Pact Publishing, our event partner. We are giving away the book for implementing FinOps. So again, the event's over the next 2 days. So make sure you dial in tomorrow and the day after with lots more great sessions. So again, thank you to Rahul. Thank you to Yogesh for staying up so late. to really show love to the US audience, because even in Europe we're already putting our pajamas on, right? So you're really showing love to the US community here. So we really appreciate that that you did, make the time just to show them some love. So really appreciate that you did that, guys. Really do. So
Honor is ours. Thank you. It's such a nice event. It's great to share knowledge and also gain from others. Amazing to have it.
And what we'll do, that we'll take one final question, and that's it. We're going to wrap up. So it's by Frantisek, who asked, is it possible to show links between data entity fields and form table fields without Visual Studio? E.g., we have some fields in GL parameters, and we would like to know which data entities included this file.
Okay. So, the easiest option is if you go on any form and you go on the form options, you can essentially look the data source there. But that's just for awareness. If on every form you have that export to Excel option, if it's showing you an option for open in Excel, it's usually giving you the option of an entity through which it's going to facilitate the import. So it can be GL parameters, it can be any other form. Use the open in Excel, that label, go in the data entities and check the corresponding entity.
Thank you for that. Awesome. And without further ado, that's it for today, guys.
Ras, sorry to interrupt. We have one person raising his hand. Not sure if he has still a question. I will make him a presenter so he can unmute his mic.
Okay,
and can ask his question.
This will be the last question then, as I know it's very late for everyone. So let's unmute your mic, Sandeep, and then hello, Sandeep.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, Rahul and Yogesh. It's fantastic job. I think the last person what the question asked, the same question I was having. I'm a newbie in AX. I'm finance and operations side, and I always struggle to find out which entity I need to use to import. For example, just for the item product masters, there was so many entities was showing. But I think Rahul has pointed correctly that if I go to the form and see export and see which entities use, I hope that will be. And I was searching, going through all those documentation, but I didn't found anything. So I think Rahul has pointed correctly. Or if you can put more information on this, Mr. Rahul.
Yeah, I think the open in Excel is a great way. The other is using the out-of-box data templates which are out there. You can simply load them, and that essentially gives you by different module, by different the areas of business and data, which entities are out there that typically will go with as part of it. Yogesh?
Thank you so much.
No, absolutely.
Hello,
yeah.
Hello, Yogesh.
Yeah, there is a lot of echo going on, but I agree. It just reminded me of my project like a few years ago when we ended up using customers entity, one of the customers entity, which was supposed to be like similar to customer V1 or V2 at that time, but for import, and it took hours and hours to import even a few thousand customers. So utilizing the right entity, going through the data packages, looking at the ones which are out there already is definitely a great start as well.
Okay, Andre, do we have any final comments before we close for today?
You're asking me now. Okay, well, I'm really happy to being part of this community, and really happy to see all those session submissions. It was quite hard to get everyone a place in these 3 days. But actually we managed it. And I want to thank especially now Rahul and Yogesh for staying up that late, or not sure if they went to bed and woke up that early again, because it's really midnight in India. Well, thank you guys, and hopefully we can have a great day 2 tomorrow again.
Yep.
Thank you all. See you all tomorrow.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.